Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da. Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, 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 geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to another all-new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Today we are joined by Dynamic Music Partners, talking about the music behind Young Justice Outsiders on the DC streaming service. We'll then talk Oscar commentary with Brett Hoffman and Marcus Theaters. All that and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek and Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors, 4 Hogwarts houses, 1 ring rules and more. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
Another fantastic show today. I'm your host, James Enstall. I never introduce myself. I never say, this is James Enstall with Geek to Me Radio. I'm always like, this is Geek to Me Radio. So hello, everyone. I'm James Enstall. We have a fantastic show. Those of you who are enjoying Young Justice Season 3 Outsiders on the DC streaming service, we have a great treat for you today. The people who brought you the music behind the show are on.
We're joined now by Dynamic Music Partners, Lolita Ritmanis, Michael McCuistion, I hope I pronounced that right, and Kristopher Carter.
Close. It's Michael McCuistion. Michael McCuistion.
Okay, I was close. I tried my very best, but I was at least 2 out of 3 I got. That's great. I can't thank you all 3 enough for joining me on air to talk about Young Justice Outsiders and the music behind it.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So, obviously, no stranger to working on DC projects. The 3 of you have all worked on every part stuff we know: Batman Beyond, Batman Brave and the Bold, Justice League Unlimited, Legion of Superheroes, Teen Titans, Zeta Project. With Young Justice, you worked on the first 2 seasons. When it was announced that Season 3 was going to happen, was it an automatic, you guys, Dynamic Music Partners, are in, or was there some hesitation? What was up in the air, and what was guaranteed for you guys?
Well, hi, everybody. Michael here. It wasn't our decision at all. I mean, we heard that it was going to get a pickup, and we were thrilled, of course, because it was so unusual the way that it happened, with all the fans, expressing so much interest, in Warner Brothers actually listening and saying, great, we'll make another season 5 years later. We were contacted pretty quickly after that, I think, but it was definitely always the producer's decision and the studio's decision who they're going to hire. So we were just grateful that they were getting the old team back together, and I think that was true of a lot of different departments, not just music, but a lot of different people in the crew and the original, of course, the producers, co-producers, Brandon and Greg. So we were just glad that we were part of that original team that was able to come back and tackle this new season.
But it was very exciting when we actually got the final call. When we got the actual call, it was one of these. I mean, how often does it happen where you get a call, hey, the show's been off the air for 2 years. Well, not off the air, but it's no new episodes in 2 years, and we're doing a Season 3, and you're in. So, pretty cool.
And it was such a well-received series by the fans. It fired on all cylinders between the voice work, the writing, the animation, obviously the music. We've had Greg Weisman on the show before, and we had him on literally 2 weeks before it was officially announced that it was going to be renewed. And at the time, he either acted very coy or he literally had no idea that it was definitely going to be renewed. So it was very exciting when that news broke. Having worked on the original series and then having it be in the hiatus and then coming back to work on the season now, a much more, I don't want to use the word adult, but I'd say advanced as far as both the team, the actors, the characters have grown, and obviously it's reflected in the music. Could the 3 of you talk a little bit about how that was to revisit the project and have it updated with the subtle nuances between the original series and what we're now seeing with Young Justice Outsiders?
And this is Kristopher. Hello. I think that we were wanting to take the music in more of a direction that it was a little bit darker, a little bit more advanced. The score had the chance to grow, too. So we're a little more, sometimes maybe dissonant, sometimes a little more adventurous in the textures and the orchestra, and we're really happy to have a chance to kind of evolve the sound along with the show.
And it's also a very collaborative process with Brandon Vietti and Greg Weissman, where we literally do go pretty much frame by frame for each episode and talk about what the music can do, what the music should not do, certain ways to enhance the scene, or also to stay out of the way sometimes. So it's a very involved, wonderfully involved collaborative process, very similar to what would be on top feature film kind of work. So this ain't no little small cartoon, that's for sure.
I just wanted to add also that we evolved our palette, because we originally were doing Young Justice with more kind of synthesizer sounds, unusual textures, ambient pulsations, and things like that. And we have all of that at our disposal, but we've also added a full orchestra palette to that for this season, which is a little bit more of an adult sound, and it gives us a little bit more of a breadth of expression, because now we pretty much have everything at our fingertips. Instead of just limiting ourselves to just electronic music, we actually have acoustic music, and we're using all these different elements all together now.
And the collaborative effort, with this being, I guess, almost in a way, the flagship title for DC's launch of the new DC streaming service, how much, and especially given the amount of experience that all of you have had working on various DC animated projects, how much free reign was given to the three of you, and how much was kind of laid out, we need this, and this, or was it a nice, healthy balance of the two?
Free reign? I don't know if we have necessarily free reign. We have, after we have our meetings with Brandon and Greg, we certainly all feel very inspired to delve into the deepest part of our creative process to bring back something that they will think is fantastic. So in that sense, having that confidence from the producers that, they've chosen us because they know they can ask for something, and we will really go for it to try to give them what they want. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's all part of that whole back and forth process. So, free reign is great, but it also can be kind of overrated if you don't have the collaborative process, if you don't have the people whose vision it is to begin with. If those people aren't accessible, that can, for a composer, be very frustrating, because then when you don't get any feedback, you don't know if it is working or not. So it's really nice to have that trust and that freedom on both sides.
We had a question come in from one of our Twitter followers, at Jay Sandlin Writer, wanted to know, the opening to Outsiders is brilliant with while still being subtle, and he wants to know, with the Halo specifically, seems to be the breakout star, how does the music convey her many uses of her powers? We see visually when the colors change, but audio can be far more subtle. How is that woven in by the three of you?
That was something that came from discussions with the producers. Greg was mentioning when we first met the character that she has all these different powers, and an instrument that kind of captures that the diversity of her power is the strings. And so that was something that they wanted to be a component of that. So Halo has a theme that's based in the strings, and has this sense of wonder and awe and discovering who she is in this new this new combination of a beings, machine and human.
And having worked, as we mentioned, on so many, not just animated projects, we mentioned the well-deserved Emmy Award win for Batman Beyond, but also the multiple nominations for the other shows, Justice League Unlimited, Zeta Project. Also, the work in TV and film with shows like West Wing and the others, up to films like Lethal Weapon 3 and 4. What do you find is more challenging for doing an animated series than it is doing a live-action film?
Well, I think when you're talking about animation versus live action, you're talking about you're mostly talking about pace, because animation tends to move much quicker than live action in terms of the drama and the action. It's much more compressed. So that's certainly something to think about, because music moves through time, and when you're working on a live action show, you usually have a little bit more time to express something musically than you do in an animated show where things are a lot more compressed and the storytelling is more compressed. So it takes, a different kind of creativity to be able to say what you need to say quickly and effectively and make sure that there's not too many notes in there and then, move on to something else, turn on a dime. Those are skills that I think are unique to animation. And story-wise too, you can tell a much broader story with live action because sometimes those programs are longer. Sometimes they're an hour long for a series, whereas animation is usually 22 minutes. So really, I think that pace is one of the biggest differences between the two.
You mentioned some of the big features. I mean, all three of us have a pretty diverse background of work that we have done and continue to do that's away from composing for animation. And early in my career, I did a lot of orchestrating for some of these huge features. We mentioned Lethal Weapon, two of the Lethal Weapons, which I worked on for Michael Kamen. Now, he was the composer, but he had several orchestrators. And in that sense, our job was not to compose any music. It was to take musical sketches, musical ideas, and arrange them for the full orchestra. And that was very thrilling. The pressure of having to answer to a producer or director is kind of gone because I am really answering to the composer at that point. And that's a very common type of job in our field. There are many, many top composers that have a whole team of people working with them, working, alongside them, even writing some of the music under the main composer's name to facilitate getting the work done. With the three of us, what has been a real godsend for us is that we really all three, we are the only composers on these series, and we take that as kind of a badge of honor and a badge of pride, and also sometimes it means that we have to answer for everything, and it means that we are intimately involved with all the music that we write, and we pretty much know every note. And it's a joy. It's kind of how it used to be back in the old days, and I think it allows for our creative voices to be truly authentic because it's us. It's the three of us.
And since we're talking Young Justice outsiders with dynamic music partners, every good superhero has an origin story. The Justice League were formed, how the Avengers were formed fighting Loki. The three of you teaming up. Tell us a little bit about how that collaboration and the formation of Dynamic Music Partners came about.
Dynamic Music Partners was definitely a conscious decision on the three of us to have work-life balance and to pool our resources together to conquer the industry with power times three.
I can tell you that we were actually working together for many years before we actually called ourselves Dynamic Music Partners. We originally started working with Shirley Walker on the Batman the Animated Series back in the early 90s. Yeah, and that's where we met each other, and she had a very lengthy and interesting process by which she would hire composers to help her on the show and do first orchestrate for her and then later write cues and then perhaps get their own episode. And we all went through that process and ended up on the other side of it being pretty much her team plus Harvey Cohen, who's no longer with us. So it was the four of us who did Superman the Animated Series with Shirley. And after that, we had been working together for so long, and we just kept working together on all these different shows, and we finally just decided, hey, it would be great if we could just form our own little umbrella and have one name for the three of us when we work in animation, and that's how that ended up happening. But I think we've been Dynamic Music Partners now for 14 years, is it? But we've actually been working together for more like 25.
And obviously the work you did on Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which to my mind is still probably the best Batman movie ever to hit the big screen. And then going forward, like you said, working with Shirley Walker, was it kind of, I don't want you guys to get in any trouble, but are you guys more or less, it sounds like Warner Brothers DC's go-to people for the music in their shows, given the list of projects you've taken on and the accolades you've gotten for those projects?
Well, that's a nice thought. we are often very fortunate to work on Warner Brothers projects. There are other composers as well that work on some of the projects, and very talented composers. So for us to be in the pool of go-to people, it's great. But there's really no sitting back on our laurels and just relaxing. I mean, anytime there's a new show, a new series or a film, it's very often that we have to really step up and make some sort of initial contribution musically, just to kind of either secure our place on that project, or to, if it's new producers, to audition. But it's not as common with Warner Brothers because of the people that we've worked with in the past. So it's been a great ride. We do work with other studios, other producers as well, and it's important to keep all the different stories straight and all the different characters, and make sure that every property that we work on has a unique sound that's very personable.
And I think it's an interesting point you bring up, because I think a lot of people are familiar with casting for voice actors or casting for actors in movies and TVs, but with musicians and composers and conductors, I'm sure it's a slightly different process. Are you asked to submit? Do some places have open calls? Please, let's hear what you have. How does it work, the process of being selected for a particular project from any studio?
We'll get that answer and more right after this. Stand by.
Hi, this is Greg Weisman, the creator of Gargoyles and co-creator of Young Justice, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio. Stay well.
And right now we're talking with dynamic music partners, people behind the music for this latest season of Young Justice, Outsider Season 3 on DC streaming service. We asked them before we went to break about the process of auditioning as far as jobs when it comes for musicians and composers.
It's actually not so much different from what actors have to go through. There's definitely a period of an audition. We have to, there's a variety. Some shows will actually bring potential composers and conductors in, and you can make a pitch. Other times, you actually pitch by your music. You'll create a piece as an audition, and that serves as your, as you're representing you in that process.
Yeah, I'll just add that it's sometimes deceiving when you only hear music, but you don't hear or you don't experience how the composer can interact with the creative person in charge. So just the back and forth of helping do the storytelling through music, also just personalities, how do people work together? That's just something that, that's why you hear of these stories of directors and composers having these long relationships, because you do develop a musical shorthand, and some of that nervousness that you might have on a first date is absolutely not there. So you can kind of get to the next level, figuratively speaking. I think there's benefit to both. I mean, obviously, some young composers trying to break into the business, you hope for the health of the business that there is room for everyone. But often I find that people that take chances on someone that they've never heard of based on just one track, we've had a couple of situations where then we are called back in, not back in, but we're called in. Maybe we were like second in line to get the show, but it went to some unknown person and there wasn't a successful working relationship, and then we stepped in and took over. So there's no rules.
And with Young Justice being brought back for its well-deserved third season, the fan outcry was huge to bring this show back, and WB and DC listened, and they brought the show back for a third season. The same outcry is now being heard for Justice League Unlimited. The people want this show back. The hashtag JL Reunions on Twitter. We actually had Andrea Romano on the show, and she said she'd come out of retirement to direct it if they did a feature film. We've had several members of the cast on, Kevin Conroy, Susan Eisenberg, Phil Lamar, and they've all said the same thing. Would that be something, obviously, that you guys would be right up at the on deck, essentially, if they were to bring back a Justice League Unlimited, be it a movie or a small series? And have you guys given any thoughts to that? Are those wheels turning in your heads as well?
Well, they're turning now, for goodness sakes. I hadn't heard of this before, so this is amazing news that there's this kind of fan interest out there. Oh, my gosh. And we'd be thrilled. We'd be absolutely thrilled. One of our best experiences was working on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. We would love to work on that show again. It would just be terrific. Yay, go fans.
That music has definitely had a life of its own apart from the screen. We've traveled to several places across the world conducting music from both of those series, and the fans go nuts. I mean, we presented this music in Krakow, Poland, in Tenerife, in the Canary Islands, in Ubeda, Spain, and in Texas. Mm-hmm. In a rotunda of the Capitol building in Austin.
4 different countries.
Yeah. So people, as soon as they hear, you know, either the Justice League theme or Justice League Unlimited, and of course, another fan favorite is Chris's Batman Beyond theme. So, you know, we'd love to have that come back too.
Yeah, and their talk now, I've just seen rumblings that they're looking at possibly doing a live action Batman Beyond, and Will Friedle has said he'd like a role in the show. Obviously, if they do it as a movie or a TV series live action, the possibilities are almost limitless now that DC has their own streaming service. So it's very exciting to see all these things pop up and new chances for everybody involved to come through. With Justice League being so well received and such a special show, how closely did the three of you, get to work with the voice actors, and do any of you go around, Lolita, Michael, and Kristopher, do you have a special story with one of the cast members particularly?
Not Justice League, really.
Well, I mean, just as far as the process goes, we don't really interact with the cast unless there's a song. If there's a song to be done, then we'll interact with the cast for sure. I mean, like, for instance, in Batman Brave and the Bold, we work with Neil Patrick Harris to do the musical episode, The Mayhem of the Music Meister. And so that's a fantastic example of a great collaboration. He was wonderful to work with, and it was terrific to be able to write songs, and we knew they'd be performed so well. So that's great. But ordinarily, the voice acting is done long before the music. And even though when we work on the music, we have the performances of the voice actors as our inspiration along with the picture, we don't usually have contact with them unless there's some kind of music that they're going to be doing for the show.
I was just going to say, like, another voice actor that was amazing to work with is when we did The Killing Joke, and we had this crazy song that Mark Hamill sang, and just to be in the studio with him and to, you know, pretty much faint when he entered, but then had to compose myself to be able to actually work with him. It's really quite amazing. We've had a few of these Young Justice viewing parties where some of the cast members show up, and it's always interesting for them because when we hear them speak, it's like, oh my God, that's Halo. And so we've been living with these voices, and we're just like so geeked out that we need to you know, kind of tear ourselves off the ceiling and just say, hey, we're the composers. So, you know, but it's definitely fun. And we did work with the Young Justice cast. Chris, you could tell about the vocal sessions.
Well, of course, Young Justice appeared in Teen Titans Go, so when Young Justice came back, they had to reciprocate and have Teen Titans Go make an appearance in Young Justice. Yeah, we got to create a spoof song for the Doom Patrol and work with Scott Menville and Tara Strong and Kari Payton and Greg Sipes and Hinton Walsh, and just to hear those voices, you know, singing the song, but actually in character. It's really, really quite amazing they can do that.
And I guess with the return of this third season, I think at one point last week, it was the most streamed show of all the platforms. The accolades have been huge. The fan reception has been fantastic. I can only assume that a fourth season will be coming without obviously getting any of you into trouble. Have any of the three of you heard anything as far as what we might get to see, or if in fact a fourth season is actually coming?
We have heard that everybody wants it. Now, we have not heard how it's going to happen.
No, nobody. Please don't assume anything. It was the fan interest that made it happen to begin with, and I think it's going to take the same kind of fan interest that's going to create a fourth season, because there are no guarantees for sure.
And I know for sure that they're paying very close attention to all the numbers. So we totally encourage the fan base to not drop off in between the two seasons, the two half seasons, because the next batch I think begins in July or something.
Right.
So keep
yeah,
watching.
that sounds right.
Watch, rewatch. Don't cancel anything. I think that's the thing. I actually heard some people say like, "Oh, I might just buy it and then cancel it," and it's like, no, don't cancel. The fans really are so powerful, and I think sometimes the fans don't even realize how powerful they are. So keep watching and keep supporting it. They're powerful superhero fans.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're listening right now and you have not yet subscribed to the DC Universe, it's fantastic. All the series we mentioned, from Batman Beyond, Batman the Animated Series, original series like Young Justice, Outsiders, and also the live-action Titans, all that on the DC streaming service. Thank you all three for your time. It's been fantastic talking to you again. Dynamic Music Partners, the people behind the music that we're hearing on Young Justice, Outsiders. You can stream it now. Thank you all three for your time today, and I look forward to keeping up, and hopefully we'll get that season 4 of Young Justice, maybe something new for Justice League.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thanks so much.
We'll be right back talking with Brett Hoffman and Marcus Theaters after this. Stand by.
Hey guys, this is Corey Payton. I play Cyborg on Teen Titans Go. Booyah! And get ready for some Geek to Me radio. I hear it's real good.
This segment, and really this show, is brought to you by the fine folks at Discover St. Charles. That's discoverstcharles.com for the website. Go to the website. Just pull it up on your phone or your laptop. It's a gorgeous website. They've got these beautiful pictures cultivated from Instagram, people who've gone out there and taken pictures of Newtown, of the car dealership that's out there that sells all the classic cars, Fastlane, of their inside the foundry that when it's decorated for an event, of the old grist mill by the Millstream Bar, of just some of the historic buildings. It's a fantastic looking, and it almost just makes you want to immediately go there. There's something for everyone in historic St. Charles, and there's all places you can eat. If you're looking for something like a unique gift to give somebody, they've got unique shopping experiences. It's a great place to go. You know it's going to be crowded. As soon as this cold weather goes away, people are going to be out there riding bikes up and down the Katy Trail. They'll be taking pictures. There's a lot of spring photographs go on for the kids when they're getting ready to get their school pictures. They have all sorts of fantastic places to take pictures. There's always, even when it's cold, you always see the bride and the groom. You feel bad for them because the bride's out there in her wedding dress, but they're getting their pictures taken because it's such a beautiful place to get those pictures taken. If you're from out of town, if you're listening to this, you're streaming this online right now, you're hearing this on a podcast version after we've archived it, and you don't live close by, lots of places to stay, from charming bed and breakfasts to hotels with all the modern amenities. Visit the website, discoverstcharles.com. Plan your trip now. There's all sorts of fun things to see and do every day of the year. Hope you'll come out and take a visit, and definitely visit the website, discoverstcharles.com. We're going to take another break. Come right back talking to Brett Hoffman and Marcus Theaters, all about Oscars. Stand by.
This is Tara Strong, also known as Harley Quinn, or Raven, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We're back with the big award show, the Oscars, right around the corner. We've got Brett Hoffman from Marcus Theaters, one of our show sponsors, on the line, ready to talk all thing Oscars. Brett, how are you, if I can talk?
I'm doing great.
Good. So lots to talk about with the Oscar picks coming up. I know you've always got the inside track. You've kind of seen all these. Marcus Theaters just showed all these. They had all the Oscars that they air. You can go in and buy the ticket to go see them all for people who missed them, which is always great. So what are you thinking going into this Oscars season next weekend?
Well, there's a lot going on going into this Oscar season. I mean, if we look at the individual categories, I think it's safe to say I don't think there'll be too many surprises if you take a look and read what all the pundits are saying right now. But, I mean, if we go through a few of them right here, when you look at the Best Actor category, I think that one's going to Rami Malek, who did a tremendous job playing Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. And the only guy that I think is going to be really disappointed in that in the world is Christian Bale, who frankly did such a great job playing Dick Cheney and basically getting himself not in shape, but out of shape for that role. And if you saw any of those performances, you'd say you could have given it to either one. I think there are some people who said, well, maybe they'll give it to Bradley Cooper because they didn't nominate him for director. But you look at what Rami's doing for Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think that clearly goes to him.
And Christian Bale, that's got to take a toll on your body, from slimming down for American Psycho, bulking up and muscling up for Batman, and then he's got to add all this weight for Vice. My goodness, that man's gone through some stuff with his body.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And on the female side and the Best Actress side, this is one where I think there isn't controversy, but a lot of people are on the fence at this one. If you're going to ask me in December who was going to win this award, it was going to Lady Gaga, and that was it for her role in A Star is Born. However, Glenn Close ended up winning the award at the Golden Globes for this movie, The Wife, and she is now the favorite to win this one because she's never won an Oscar either. So the Academy definitely likes to vote for, quote, lifetime achievements as well. But I just look at this one, and I'm going to put my edge to Lady Gaga here because you look at what she did, and she was almost unrecognizable to some of her fans as she played this struggling musician looking to get a break. So I'm rooting for Lady Gaga on this one, but don't be surprised if Glenn Close ends up winning this one.
And Best Supporting Actor, that's got a lot of talent in that category too. What are you thinking as far as the pick for there?
Yeah, this one's probably Mahershala Ali is the only one that's really being talked about to win this one for Green Book. Definitely a great performance here, and I think that you're going to see there. Adam Driver's being talked about for Black Klansman a lot. I just think the buzz is all on Mahershala to win this one for Green Book, so I'll give the nod to him.
And then we've got Best Supporting Actress. That one, we got two people from The Favorite in that category. Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz are both up, but I'm not sure, just the way it looks, if either one of them would be able to pull it in with the other people they've got in that category.
And I think that's almost a disadvantage because I think they'll kind of cancel each other out in votes. If people really like The Favorite, they're going to vote for one or the other, and I think that's almost a disadvantage. It's, if you look at the odds makers, they're saying Regina King for Beale Street Could Talk, who a great performance as the mother in that picture. Otherwise, you've got Amy Adams for Vice, and she's the one that I think may be able to break through for the film Vice. She's been nominated 5 times and never won, so I think that might help her out here. Meanwhile, Regina King, this is the first time she's ever been nominated. So just like I was on the fence with Glenn Close and Lady Gaga, I'm kind of betting my way on Amy Adams for this one, but Regina King is probably the other one where if you were gonna go that way, I would say that'd be a good pick as well.
And I love Claire Foy's performance in First Man, but like you said, I think those two standouts, Regina King's performance and Amy Adams, I think are just going to nudge them a little ahead of Claire Foy, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just think Claire Foy is off the radar in terms of that movie. There's not much else from a performance standpoint that movie was nominated for across the board when you look at all the different award sessions. So I think great performance for her, but I think Regina or Amy, it's going to come down to one of those two.
And Best Director is always a category that they scrutinize. I know we've got Spike Lee's nominated. We've got Adam McKay for Vice, again, which Vice has gotten such critical acclaim, but I'm not sure who to go with in this category.
Well, when you really look at this one, I mean, some people say maybe Spike Lee for Black Klansman, and I do believe that after, Spike Lee this is probably one of his better films in recent years. I don't think it's up to the level of something like Do the Right Thing. That was a really good film, and it was kind of like, wow, it put him back in the spotlight for this one. However, I think the nod is going to go to Alfonso Cuarón, just because of what he did and the story that he had to tell. When you're looking at Roma, it's a black and white film. It's very stylized. It's almost an art project, and it's a labor of love for him. So when you look at all that going for it, it's not like Spike Lee isn't deserving, but I think they'll give the nod to him for Roma just because of everything that's going into that film. And for him to choose this picture, it was rather interesting, too, because the last time he directed a picture, it was Gravity, which was the spectacular space story that captivated all these audiences in 2013. It was really interesting that he chose this movie to do, and I think that's why they'll probably give him the directing award for this one.
And for Best Picture, I know for me personally, being a comic book dude, I'd love to see Black Panther take this one home, but I just don't feel like it's going to happen.
You know, I'm very happy it got in there, and obviously being an action comic book fan myself, I would love to see it basically surprise everyone.
Yeah.
I think that would be the shock of the last 20, 30 years in the Academy Awards when that one actually won. The same thing is true with Bohemian Rhapsody. I think if something like that could take it like it did at the Golden Globes, I think a lot of people would be talking about it. I really think, to me, this probably comes down to two pictures, and that was going to be between Roma and A Star is Born. And until November, I was basically looking at A Star is Born because I thought that had a lot of things to it. It had great performances by Cooper and Lady Gaga. At the time, I thought that Bradley Cooper would be nominated for Best Director. He is not, but I really thought that was a compelling story. Now, some people, as a dark horse, are looking at The Favorite. I just look at that picture. I mean, it's kind of a screwball period piece movie.
Right.
And I think it appealed to some, but I don't think it appealed to a wide enough audience for it to really win here. So while my pick is A Star is Born, I think I'll probably give the nod for if I had to tell you who I thought would win. I think Roma's just basically got the momentum going for it right now. And like I said, it's a great picture from an art standpoint, directing standpoint, and they took some risks doing black and white and taking on the subject matter that it did. The only issue that I had from Roma is, to me, it was a difficult picture to watch. The first hour is very, very slow if you watch it, and it's just a more difficult picture to watch than any of the others on the board, so that's what makes it different. I mean, Black Panther, you're strapping on your safety belt, and you're along for the ride from the moment those opening credits hit. Roma is a totally different picture, and we'll see what the Academy gives this year, but if it's all of the films here are deserving, the only one that I really don't think has a shot is probably Vice. Not to say that Adam McKay didn't direct a good picture and it wasn't a good picture, but I just think it's had a mix of critics on one side or the other, so I just don't think that would come up. But I could certainly see Star is Born getting it. Rome, of course, was the one I think will probably end up winning, but Green Book and The Favorite certainly had their moments and could at least garner some votes.
And we're talking with Brett Hoffman, Director of Marketing for Marcus Theaters, one of our show sponsors. Marcus Theaters has totally changed the way we see movies, especially here in St. Louis, all the renovations that have been going on at Ronnie's and out at the DePere Theater. Some of the stuff that you guys have coming up right here, for those of you who are listening in the St. Louis area, you guys always have something going on, like at the St. Charles Cinema. You've got Wandering Earth.
Yeah, this is the #1 film at the international box office right now. It's China's, one of its first big space epics. If you're a sci-fi fan and you like seeing different things, get on out this week to see this movie at St. Charles Cinema. It's really unique. It's really done well. Like I said, it's #1 internationally, so I think your audience would love this. Go out to see something a little bit different. A Wandering Earth, it's playing at St. Charles Cinema, and this is what we're trying to do, is bring different films to people everywhere, including the ones in St. Louis. So check out Wandering Earth and look it up on the internet before you go see it, because I think people will enjoy it if you give it a chance.
And you guys have a second Ultra Screen DLX auditorium now in the St. Louis area with the O'Fallon Cinema.
That's right. It was just opened up this past weekend. We have Lolita 3D playing on there right now. Let me tell you, these Ultra Screen DLX auditoriums are just the perfect viewing environment. We've got a massive screen there. We've got Dolby Atmos sound. And then we also have these heated Dream Lounge recliners, which are great for February afternoons or nights at the movies. I'll tell you that much.
Yes.
We have these Ultra Screen DLXs in two places now. One is in Chesterfield, and one now is across the border in Illinois at our O'Fallon Cinema there. Go and check out movies on one of these big screens. Alita's there now. And tickets are also on sale for Captain Marvel, which is coming out on March 7th, and that movie is just going to be tremendous. They say it might make almost $200 million its opening weekend. So get your tickets now and see it in the best auditoriums in St. Louis at one of these Ultratscreen DLXs.
All at MarcusTheaters.com. And before I let you go, Best Picture, we talked about the Oscars. Best Picture Fest Day 2, Chesterfield, De Pere, Ronnie's, and St. Charles and O'Fallon. You can see the nominated animated shorts. You can see The Favorite. You can see Vice, Black Panther, and Bohemian Rhapsody all at those theaters, yeah?
That's right. We did the first half this past Saturday. The second half of those films you just mentioned are next Saturday. Get them all done in one fell swoop on a Saturday, and then be prepared for the awards show next Sunday. You can get those tickets on MarcusTheaters.com. And like I said, this is another thing we're doing to bring different pictures and pictures you may not have been able to catch before back to our screens.
Brett Hoffman, Director of Marketing for Marcus Theaters. Always a pleasure. I love talking with people who are smarter about subjects than I am. So thanks very much for being on here with me this past Sunday. I love it. Thanks.
All right, James. Have a great afternoon.
You too. There he goes. MarcusTheaters.com, again, is that website. Go check out those second half of the nominated movies now. Get your tickets. We're going to come back and wrap things up right after this. Stand by.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. All right, thanks once again to our guest today. We had Dynamic Music Partners talking all about the music of Young Justice Outsiders. And, of course, you just heard from Brett Hoffman making his Oscar picks. We've got a couple days we lost due to some snow and ice storms, so there's 2 shows back. We've got a lot of stuff still coming up for the next week of February, and then going into March, we'll have a lot of content. We're going to be talking with John Glover, the voice of the Riddler from Batman the Animated Series, Lionel Luthor from Smallville. We'll be broadcasting live from Planet Comic Con the last weekend of March, and of course Wizard World St. Louis coming up that very first weekend of April. Lots of stuff always going on. Please keep up with me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Geek to Me Radio, Instagram, same thing, at Geek to Me Radio, and give us a follow on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio. Keep up on all the things. We try to post the shows after they air here, so if you miss them live, you can always go back and hear them in podcast form on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Podomatic. FM player as well, I just noticed, has us as well. So until next week, my friends. Justice and Happy Harbor. Good night.